All right, so I'm here with Tamar Michai Freeman. I have the privilege of hanging out with who's running for City Council of Berkeley. And really excited to have this opportunity to interview Michai, who's a good friend of mine and just a super awesome human being who I think really gets it. And I'm going to put on my journalism hat now and ask Michai some questions. And so you can all hear from her, what she believes in and what she feels is important for our community, the disabled community, and the community at large in the city of Berkeley. Does that sound good, Michai?
Sounds great, Jack.
Okay. It's like we have a little script going. How does that sound? So, what made you want to get involved in city politics like this, running for office?
Oh gosh, well, I have been working in allyship with neighborhood groups who were very frustrated about not having affordable housing. And by that I mean truly affordable for lower income disabled senior housing. And the incumbent of my district just very unresponsive to the voices and needs of people that were not, I would say, of middle class and intellectual organization. And I just felt it was time to not just be frustrated, but to actually to run and give voice to issues that I thought needed to be heard.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And we need more people from our community doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And as I've told you before, I think it's really admirable. When you talk about affordable housing, though, we hear these words a lot. Low-income housing, affordable housing. And I think most politicians use those words, and I think most people agree with those words. What do you think is missing in that conversation?
Truth. I think it's housing people who are on fixed incomes, working class incomes, can't afford. And we know how expensive it is to live in the Bay Area, and to just say affordable housing when you know a large block of people are living, working, main jobs, fixed income, SSDR, pensions. That's not $80,000 a year, $60,000. And we know those levels are, and we know that housing should be a little more than 30% of your income. And we talk about these things, and politicians talk about these issues, but they're not really concerned, I feel, about the people who are living with these incomes, and really thinking about housing that is conducive to dignity and wellness. You can't be well living in poor housing, substandard housing, and deal with people there's something you're feeling. If you're constantly struggling about if you're having to pay the rent, having to move. So, yeah, I think we have to really push back on that term affordable housing and really be clear about what we're talking about. Truly affordable and the ability to retain it for as long as we wish to live there.
I love that. And what I especially love is that you gave numbers. You gave figures. Usually when this conversation happens, it ends at affordable housing. That's air quotes, right? And maybe it'll be extremely affordable housing. But what do those words mean? And you said it. We know that $80,000, a lot of people here do not make $80,000 a year, and rent should not be more than 30% of a person's income. Those are statistics. Those are actual figures that politicians can build policy around, and that's something you're right. We do not hear. I'll give a little statistic too. You're referring to $80,000 a year. My guess is that's the Berkeley.
Well,
is it the Berkeley area?
the median, I think, is 164,000 for Alameda County, and the median, I think this is like 87 or something.
Wow.
So it's, I'm not against luxury housing. You have the income, sure, rent it, but housing is for everyone.
Yeah.
We have the housing for everyone. So for those who can't afford that, which is the vast majority of people, we should be prioritizing and building housing that most people can afford.
And a statistic that I'm aware of too is that most people on fixed incomes make under $1,000 a month if it's SSI. So let me ask you this though. Say I'm a business owner, small business owner in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. How would that kind of housing benefit me?
More people will be living in your neighborhood. Then buy business services, because they don't have to spend a whole lot on their housing. You're a thriving community of all different types of people. And we all have values, skills, and abilities that makes us thriving, healthy community. So it's in benefit to businesses, cities, not to have people living on the streets, not to have people who need mental health addiction services and care to be on our streets. I think it's, we could be more humane and not lose what lives in you.
Do you think those people will have more expendable income if they have housing that's 30%?
Of course, yeah. For groceries, for amenities that they and their children or families may need. Increased tax rates in terms of having good jobs or a guaranteed income. Hopefully will evolve in our society to see if that is beneficial. So I think more business owners should invest in good housing good education and good options. Very important that you have options and always be steered towards what people think they should have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, in regards to your platform, what would you list as the major points of your platform? Maybe we could start there. If you can remember off the top of your head.
Well, it's like
Gotta get your cheat sheet right.
well, truly affordable housing that will afford and retain neighborhood into the scale and density of housing. I used to was the most dense of housing growing up. Housing project. And we see that was a failed experiment in affordable housing. So I feel like housing is conducive open spaces, parks, and amenities that people, neighborhoods can have meaningful influence and renters. Very important. And then income equality. I think that being able to engage in work that is feasible, enjoyable, and accessible for many types of people with different abilities is very important. And having opportunities, especially for students, loan forgiveness. I mean, we've seen how these loans and the awful student debt cripples people in terms of their income. So being able to engage in the level of work and being able to have those debts expired or forgiven from by doing community work is very important. I've been having access to city programs and services that is accessible to everyone in our community. Frequently, we have these disability or aging services, but they're not the they don't meet the needs of people who are in the community who need better access and outreach to know about these services and programs.
Yep.
And so, it's just lip service if you say that it's open to everyone. But you know there are structural barriers that prevent access, and it could be as basic as an inaccessible form for application, inaccessible doorways or bathrooms, or just straight out indifference, which there is out there.
So you're talking about accessibility and disability rights, which of course resonates with me, hopefully some other people watching this.
Also, it's in terms of city programs, services having a job. I have to see who you employ to work at what position. How do you outreach? how do you train department heads? So this institute knowledge about the ADA enactments and income equality. There's so many intersectional pieces that are layered on one top of that disability is a very important part. Yeah.
And I've often told people that I've dreamed of living in Berkeley because I view it as sort of a disability capital of the country, if not the world. This is where the Ed Roberts Center is. This is where the first ILRC was, Independent Living Resource Center. A lot of the protests from the 1970s originated here, and kind of the birth of, I think, a lot of our movements started out here at UC Berkeley. What do you think is the differences between, or are there differences between that projected image to the outside world and what the reality is as a person living in Berkeley who has a disability?
Sadly, I would say it's a facade. I mean, there are very progressive activists, but I think we moved from the original focus of being active and really giving voice and really being proactive against these intransigent influences that seek to silence our community, our visibility. And, we have to stop the silos, people who are enfranchised, and people who are still marginalized within the CLP. And I wish it were there. I wish it were a more I wish the reality met the reputation. But truthfully, it hasn't. And that's what I hope people who are looking at this will understand, that we need your voices now more than ever to articulate and to engage with our nonprofit and close advocacy organizations that seem to try to speak for us, but are not representing us truthfully.
And when you, that's a great answer, by the way. When you speak about silos, are you referring to the separation of people based on their kind of disability?
I think separating of people based on ideologies of what disabilities are, we're not coming together and understanding that we have different abilities, but we have striking marginalization and oppressive tactics and politics that are still rendering us in some way powerless. And I don't think we are powerless, but we seem to be always reactive instead of proactive. And so it's hard to fight against something when you're in a reactive posture.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of demanding to be acting, to be making decisions, to be localizing concerns, and be unapologetic about that. And because we're in these different silos of social activism, then it becomes, oh, I can't talk with you because you're over there, or you're at that organization, and I feel I'm empowered in this space, so I can't align with someone else. And realizing that's what makes us weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Weaker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The separation.
The separation.
Yeah, you reminded me of a quote I heard recently too, which is, losers react, winners anticipate. That's great. It's exciting to hear because you don't hear that a lot, the message of unity of people from somebody who's running for office. I remember when I asked a supervisor's aide in San Francisco if they would help step up and speak up for a social issue. And the words that I was told was, go find a community or a nonprofit to gather people around this issue, and then we'll step in. Like, then we can, then, I can start to do something. And I thought that was a really interesting answer, because I was like, I thought politicians were elected to help lead, and not all are created the same.
I heard one politician say that she posted or elected officials aren't social workers.
Oof.
And
Oof.
I thought that was very. In my head, I thought, well, don't make social policies that are people that are going to oppress and disenfranchise people. And local politics, local policies affect everyday people in many more ways, sometimes national or state, and so that's why I think it's so important for people to engage and informed on local measures.
Absolutely. In this coming election, November 2022, which promises to be an eventful one, we've got two big issues on the ballot nationally, but may also have local implications. Many issues, but two issues that are on everyone's mind, I think, right now, which is women and transgender health care, and also police reform are two big topics that seem to come up frequently. Let's start with the first one. What do you think? How do you think that would apply locally, and what are your views on that? What do you think you would advocate for?
Healthcare is a basic human right. The right to have reproductive culturally competent, accessible health care is very important. Unfortunately, it's not available. So that first step changed, and they pro choice, pro options, but even getting on the table and having accessible facilities, by having gender awareness, where you're treated by health professionals that would really care for you with respect that you deserve.
Yeah.
I think that's what really was really essential. We don't talk about accessibility and getting onto the table and being able to have a dignified exam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, receiving access to doctors' health facilities. But those facilities need to be accessible.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. There was a Planned Parenthood in my neighborhood for a number of years that got shut down, unfortunately. But for well over, I want to say it was at least 2 or 3 years, the automatic door opener for wheelchairs did not work, and I brought this to their attention numerous times, but it was just never made a priority. And I like what you mentioned, that reproductive health services are super important, but as is accessibility to those services.
And as is, what about the women who live in inaccessible states? How are they going to get to California, be outreached and getting a flight, having attendant services they need? So these are things I have to find out more and really help to elevate those issues. Because there's times in my life that I need care and didn't have perspective and care and health. That's what that means. Denied care. So I think people have to be very cognizant of it. When we say all, it should mean all.
Amen. Amen. And I thought I'd mention too that a lot of people, I think, are aptly calling this Rovember election season. I think it's great.
Yes, yes.
So on to the second one. I know there's a lot of different opinions out there on what is going to be effective police reform. Everyone seems to have an opinion on this, but what's your feeling about what could be done to improve policing in the city of Berkeley and beyond?
I think we have to stop talking about high ethic accountability in terms of policing, like we're against police. Those two, for me, are never the same. I think police are dedicated to their jobs and public safety. Shouldn't be afraid of having high ethical standards, transparency, because that's the police. And no one should be afraid of the police. Yet it's we have documented more than enough cases of not the same treatment by some police on police force. And it's a detriment to public safety. Police are not judge, jury, and executioners. Their responsibility for the person they're to be. The case is heard. If need be, in a court of law, yeah. I feel that we have to do something for more trust, accountability, and our policing. And the movement that this time is calling for is not based on undocumented, frivolous instances. And we shouldn't shy away from doing our duty to make sure that no one is abused in the courts of public safety, of policing. I don't want police to be hurt, and I don't want people, citizens to be hurt. And I feel we can't be apologetic for wanting more accountability.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Now I understand right now you actually currently have a volunteer, or you have a role in public service in the city of Berkeley right now.
Yes.
Do you want to speak on that?
I'm chair of the Commission on Disability, and we need more commissioners on our commissions, so please, Berkeley residents, we need you on the commission. I think what I'm most dismayed about is just the lack of our city manager is even listening to the input of the commission. We have bike and transportation initiatives that have been proven to be harmful to disabled pedestrians on our streets. We have higher instances of injuries, collisions by people being hit recently in Berkeley due to speed and lack of visibility. And the commission had recommended that certain types of transportation in relation to parking and bike lanes not be implemented, that were implemented. And now we have these problems on our streets. So, it's part of the reason why I decided to run as well for public office, to give visibility and access to voices, community voices that have been ignored and marginalized.
Mm-hmm. That's real stuff, and I'm glad that you're already doing public service. And I think, at least for me, shows me that you have like the pedigree to continue and expand that role because you're not new to it.
No.
But let me ask you though, even within the limited role that I guess the limitations within the role of that you've played in public service, what do you have an example of maybe one or two things that you're proud of accomplishing in that role?
Gosh, I think just articulate. We had a difficulty with a nonprofit agent in terms of treating their clients with respect, and so we got clients to come out and vocalize their displeasure, and the agency has become more, I think, receptive to clients' concerns. I think, well, I would want to have more members join, especially from the hearing and blind community, because I think their representation needs to be more front and center in a commission. But I think just since I've been on the commission, I think the valuation of the importance of having our voice weighed to issues and becoming more active. Now, I must say that the incumbent who I'm running against appointed me.
Oh, interesting.
So I doubt if she would. I'll be still on the committee. But that's okay. You know, I just felt that it was very important to me to join the race. And I'd be doing this work if I weren't on the commission. I'm still going to do it. I'm not elected. And, yeah, I think it's just important to not be, it's okay to be angry, but to do something with that energy, something positive and something you think that's going to change. And that's what I did.
That's beautiful. Well, let me get this straight though. So you are running for office against your boss?
Against the person that appointed me, yeah.
Against the person that appointed you. If that doesn't say badass, I don't know what does. That's super cool. Amazing. And you were telling me earlier, you know, because something I experience a lot, and I, you know, honestly, I tell this to my therapist, I feel like I'm going crazy with the way things are in the community, in the Bay Area right now. We have, even the choices we're given as voters, I feel like a lot of times there's bad and like less bad, you know? What do you feel about, like, do you have any comments on that, or like what do you feel is wrong with the current state of things in the sense that it disempowers voters and it disempowers people like me who feel like, nothing I do is going to make a difference, or, you know, that kind of like overwhelm.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and you're talking about crazy making behavior. And whenever you see that going on, it's very important to understand that you're not crazy or not. This is something indicator that something profound is not right. So, crazy making behavior, once you feel that it's you, but there's so many influences, practices that want to disincentivize people, disillusion people. And it's hard. It's hard to fight against that because, you know, unfortunately things does take time to address. But if you can have supporters, and I know you, and you're very active, and you have friends, and a good self-care regimen for your mental health and physical health, then you can tolerate and modulate those kinds of disincentivized feelings. I mean, just imagine how Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, all these people that, you know, every day, so many influences, obstacles, and government forces, you know, they had to cultivate the inner resources and the inner strength to fight against it and to keep their mental state. Because they're told this is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You're crazy. You're delusional. So it's very important to keep the mindset. And at times the human, we get sad, fatigued, you know, and that's not, but also to develop the capacity to, you know, rise again, to keep focused on what we have to do. And that takes work. But it's possible. It's more than possible. It's doable because so many instances of people that have done it as well.
I love that awareness of history and drawing inspiration and from previous acts of courage.
Yeah.
And with a focus on self-care. I like that a lot. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to tell our viewers about your campaign or you?
Well, first, some of yours to run for something. Usually, when I don't say it cavalierly, you bring issues that may not be there in the public discourse to this building. So, run for something. Also, if you're out there and for November 8, 2024, we're trying to fundraise for a last mailer in my district. So a $10 campaign contributions. Elect Tamar Michai Freeman.
That's this person.
Me.com would be very helpful. If you can volunteer in my campaigns, help me get out the message with door signs, window signs, and phone banking, text banking. I would love your help. Much appreciated. And it's just someone out there with a disability, and you're thinking, there's so many obstacles. Brooklyn, New York, I became disabled when I was 8 years old. And my family's an immigrant family. There's no who had a disability. And they didn't know what was our future. So there's many communities out there, many immigrant communities, and maybe they're the only one you're thinking with a disability. And you're wondering, what is my life going to be? I say dream big. Dream big. Understand it's not going to be easy. I don't believe in giving in rosy-colored glasses. But through your conviction, determination, education, we have the ADA, make it work for you. Don't be any way, feel your burden, your obstacle, that you're any less important than someone who is considered normal. There's no such thing. And to have a full life, because that is what you are worth. And just, make a life for yourself. That's what I think.
Well said. Well said. And with that, we'll remind people again, vote for Tamar Michai Freeman for Berkeley City Council, November 8th
District 1.
and beyond, right?
And beyond.
And beyond.
I will still be active. Yes.
Tamar Michai Freeman is going to be active no matter what.
No
Thank
matter
you.
what.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's always a privilege to speak with you. I feel like you articulate things in a way that's so rarely, in a way that's just so unique. And so it just speaks so much truth to me, and I think probably to anyone else who watched this. So
Thank you. Thank you.
thanks. Bye, everyone.